It's Mundane Miracle Monday.
Today we're going to be talking about homeschool and what it was like growing up homeschooled and our thoughts, our stories, whatever. So buckle up.
This is going to be embarrassing to ask because I'm going to out myself. Did you ever play Farmtown?
I think I did a little bit.
Now, there's a difference between Farmtown and Farmville.
Okay, then I don't know. I didn't ever play much either, whatever one it was.
I lived for Farmtown when I was a teenager.
I think Erica did too.
Erica and I lived the same life.
Yeah.
Yeah, I loved Farmtown, but then eventually, like, Farmville overtook Farmtown, and then some people had Farmville and Farmtown, and they were sending me Farmville invitations, and I was like, I don't want to do Farmville, the animation is stupid, and then eventually Farmtown just died, and it was sad, but it was, like, the same thing, like, you could pay money on Facebook to, like, purchase, like, a nicer silo or more exotic crops.
There wasn't like cheat codes and stuff like that.
Yeah.
But there was on Roller Coaster Tycoon. Did you ever play that?
No.
Roller Coaster Tycoon is literally like was everything. Like it was everything to me. And there was a cheat code so you could literally get endless money, like endless coins.
Yeah.
And you just had to type in whatever on the keyboard. Like this was like a CD game, like a regular
CD-ROM,
back in the day. And I loved that thing, especially because it was like you just get to build something from scratch, and it was just so fun to me.
Did you ever play Sims?
Yes, I played Sims. I loved
didn't.
Sims. You weren't allowed, or you just didn't?
I just, because of my spatial awareness problems, I couldn't make anything happen. I couldn't build anything. I didn't understand how to play it.
I loved Sims and any of those CD-ROM games. Like, let's see, Roller Coaster Tycoon, Zoo Tycoon. I loved Zoo Tycoon.
Did you play the Nancy Drew games?
Yeah. Yes. I loved the Nancy Drew movie.
Nancy Drew, how I love you. Do you know that song?
I don't know it enough to sing it, but I do know it.
There was on, I don't remember which album it was, but one of the Reliant K albums, there was a hidden, they love to hide things on their albums, but there was a hidden song at the end of one of their CDs that was not theirs. It was not their song. It was a different band, and it was called Nancy Drew. And because Ariel loved the Nancy Drew games, and she loved Reliant K, when she found that song, she was like, OMG, this is my thing.
It was written for her.
It was written for her specifically. So was the book, whatever Reliant K's book was called.
I didn't know they had a book.
Yeah, it was like a book on dating.
Of course it was. Speaking of Reliant K, I don't know how many people relate to this, but I know a lot of people that do relate to this. Having Reliant K songs dedicated to you by guys. This was very common. And especially we should get jerseys because we make a good team.
Of course.
But yours would look better than mine because you're out of my league. Like, yes,
yeah,
I am out of your league. Actually. So that was a very, very specific song, traumatic memory that I think a lot of girls have.
Not me, because I didn't talk to boys.
You didn't talk to boys? Trust me, it would have happened. So honestly, it saved you from a lot of trauma.
Well, we've hardly talked about anything homeschool.
Well, we've talked about our
yeah,
all these
just
stories
growing up
homeschooled.
Yeah.
Did you get to be off of school for holidays?
Yes.
Okay, good. Some people don't.
I know. And the reason that we were allowed to is because my mom was like, why would I want to be teaching my kids when I could have a break?
Exactly. And why would you do that to your kids? Or what about snow days?
Oh, yeah, we loved snow days.
Okay, you got off. Some homeschoolers literally still had to work on snow days.
I know.
Do school on snow days.
Yeah, we had the choice. We could, or we could have a snow day.
Of course you chose snow day.
Of course. Sometimes my sibling, like, why would they want to go out in the snow? You know, they were teenagers. But for me, if my neighbors were home, Rachel and Jessica, they were my best friends. And if they were home from school and they had a snow day, ooh, that was the best time of my life, because I would get up super early and I would put on my snowsuit.
Yes.
And I would put on my snow boots and my hat and
Go
gloves.
grab the sled out the backyard.
Yes, I would literally go knock on their door. They would be ready. They knew. And we used their sleds, and we lived, my house was right next to a park, and their house was next to my house. So we would get their sleds and we would walk to the park, and there were 2 hills at the park. And so we would all day long just sled down those hills. And there were some times when we we took their sleds. They were like the long, narrow plastic sleds.
Mm-hmm.
And we would sled down the slides on the playground. And we would zoom so fast. It was so fun. And then one year I got like a snowball maker, like a it's basically kind of like a lime squeezer. Imagine that, but it like makes a snowball. And then like a snow brick like maker thing. It was like all these snow toys, and I got them for like my birthday or something. And we built igloos. We had snowball fights. They got some like snow dye so we could like dye the snow.
That's so fun.
Oh my gosh, it was so fun. I loved snow days.
Yeah, same. And anytime, like you said, anytime that my public school friends in the neighborhood were off school, that was my favorite day.
Yes.
Because, I mean, we could go out. And isn't that crazy how back then we didn't have a sense of time?
Yeah.
We didn't plan
Yeah.
to meet up with people. We just
knew.
You would knock on their door. You would just know.
Yeah.
And they would just either be ready or they would just hurry up and get ready.
Yes.
Like, there was no getting ready back then either. It was just kind of like you come out as you are.
Yeah.
And like,
That's so true.
like you don't do anything.
I would knock on their door or ring their doorbell or whatever. And if their parents answered, I would say, "Can Rachel and Jessica play?"
So cute, but that's so true. Like,
Yeah.
that was just such a different time. And now, like, I'm sure there's still some neighborhood kids that are kind of like that.
Yeah.
But most people by the age of like 11 have cell phones, and they text each other, or they'd be like, "Hey, you want to come over?"
Yeah.
But like, we just had to, and it didn't matter if they lived 3 blocks down. Like, we would walk to their house. Like, it didn't matter. And we used to have a field near our house with like a little hill. Oh my gosh, we did so much. If it was snow, we were sledding.
Yeah.
If it was regular day, we would ride bikes like as if they were dirt bikes down the hill. And we would go explore the woods, like the woods behind our house, the woods behind our behind the field. Like, we had stores in walking distance.
Mm-hmm.
So we would walk down through the woods. There's like a back trail. And we go walk around Lowe's and pretend like it's our house.
Yeah.
Like, you know, when it's like the kitchen and everything in Lowe's. We would go in Food Lion and get free cookies because they used to give free cookies out.
Yeah, that's right.
And we would go to Cold Stone and get free samples. And like, we just did everything. Like, we would walk around by ourselves everywhere. It didn't matter. Like, thank God that nothing happened. But like, back then we just walked. We were always everywhere. And it didn't really matter. And we would stay out late sometimes too. Like, my parents didn't care for some reason, so we never had a time to be back home. We never had like a curfew for some reason until one time, but I'll get into that. And so our friends would have to sneak out. And that was a funny thing. Like, our public school friends had to sneak out, so they would come out their window and like we would just go walk around the neighborhood.
Oh my gosh, like what time are we talking?
Late. Like after 12.
Oh my gosh.
And so we would just be chilling, me and Erica, because we didn't have a curfew. So it didn't matter. Our parents didn't really care, like, as long as they knew we were in the neighborhood.
Yeah.
Like, and they would be hopping out their window. And
oh my gosh, you guys are bad influences.
I mean,
you, the homeschoolers, were the ones that were influencing the public schoolers.
Exactly. And like, my one friend, her mom would like beat her. One time I had to hide in her closet. It was not at night, it was in the daytime, but I had to hide in her closet because she was grounded and wasn't supposed to have anybody over.
I thought you meant you had to hide in her closet because her mom was beating her.
Well, she was beating her while I was in the closet. But yeah, and we just had like the time of our lives. Like, truly the time of our lives. We didn't care about anything. Like, it was just yeah, and then so the story I said,
Yeah, you had a curfew.
yeah. So we stayed out one time with some friends. It was boys, but like,
Oh.
yeah.
Yeah.
And we were out pretty late. It wasn't like in the neighborhood either. It was like we were out. And we didn't get home until like probably like 4 a.m.
Oh my gosh.
Yeah. As little teenagers. Like I was probably 14.
Oh my gosh.
Erica was obviously like 17.
Yeah.
I don't know, whatever our age difference is. And but back then it's like we didn't have cell phones really. I mean, we did, but like we didn't use them like we do I don't
Yeah.
know, it just wasn't the same. And so we got in trouble for that because not only were we out, like it wasn't just the neighborhood, we were with boys.
Yeah, and you know boys.
Yeah. Yeah. I mean,
Were
it
they your
definitely
age?
could have been
Were
worse.
the boys your age or
Yeah.
were they older?
It was like this group, a band,
Of course.
that we were friends with, and Erica actually dated one of them,
Yeah.
and then I like didn't officially date the other one. And
I knew Erica when she was dating him.
for real,
Yes.
I did
when
not.
I first met Erica, she was dating him.
What?
Yeah. I've known her that long.
Lord have mercy. That's a very
forgot
long
about him.
time. Yeah. That's who we were hanging out with. It's not like we
Yeah.
were doing anything bad
Yeah.
necessarily. Like not any like what people do these days.
Right.
But
Which
yeah.
I'm sure other kids were doing back then too, but
Oh yeah.
you just weren't
We
doing
had
that.
boundaries.
Yeah.
Thank God we did.
Yeah.
But yeah, so it was just still like obviously wrong. And yeah, so that's then my parents were like, okay, your curfew's 3 a.m.
They were like, you're out until 4, you have to be home by 3.
Exactly.
That's so funny. I'm
I
trying
think it
to
was-
think. I cannot like remember a time that I was out super late as a teenager.
Yeah, it's so crazy because we lived such crazy but not crazy lives. Like
yeah.
we didn't do anything like bad necessarily. Like obviously bad is a very broad thing,
Yeah.
but like we didn't
You
do
weren't
anything.
like doing out drinking or
Yeah.
doing drugs or like whatever.
Yeah, we weren't doing
You were
that
just
stuff. It
out
was literally just
chilling.
having fun, like
Yeah.
literally just chilling with people. And yeah, it was just a different time. It really
Yeah.
was. And like, but it's still obviously at our young age, we shouldn't be out anywhere
Yeah.
past a certain time. So that was when our curfew started.
I remember David would be out really, really late sometimes with his friends. And like my parents didn't really, it wasn't that big of a deal. Cause like,
Yeah.
again, he was like around the neighborhood or he was like, with his church friends. So it's not like it wasn't that big of a deal. Or they would go to like McDonald's super late or
Yeah.
7-Eleven or White Hen or whatever.
Fun times.
And so I remember him coming home really late sometimes. But I just don't think that I ever did that. Because I think when he was a teenager, we lived in Chicago. So it was like there were a lot more things to do.
Yeah.
And then when I was a teenager, we lived in the boonies in Indiana, and I didn't have there wasn't anything within walking distance. I didn't have any friends within walking distance, and like it wasn't like that. And it wasn't until I had my own I had my driver's license and I had a job that I was out late, but it was because I would work late and then I would come home. Tessa and I sometimes would go to Kroger really late because we would both work the closing shift, and then we'd be like, well, we need to go to Kroger to get something to eat.
What was really late though? Like 10?
No, it would be like 12 or 1.
They're open that late?
They used to be. They
Before
used to be open
COVID?
until like 4, before COVID.
I don't understand why stuff still isn't open late.
Because they don't want to pay staff to stay overnight.
Yeah, that was their way out.
Yeah, Tessa and I loved to take a late night grocery trip. That was our thing. We would get off work and be like, let's go to Kroger. It was so fun.
Mm-hmm.
But yeah, I don't think I ever stayed out that late. I think it wasn't until I was I can't even remember. I only remember a handful of times staying up past 3. Like, I think I've only ever pulled one overnighter in my life.
Oh, I loved pulling overnighters.
I
Me and
I
my
couldn't.
friends did it all the time. Well, I was always the one that would stay up the longest.
Yeah, of course you were.
Like I don't know. I didn't care to sleep back then. I really didn't, and I could never sleep. I was like just hyper.
Was.
Oh, I can sleep now.
Yeah. I would stay up really late reading
That's
in
so
my bed.
crazy.
Like Ariel and I shared a room for most of my life growing up. And there were times when we were both like really in our reading phases, and we would both be reading like on our Kindles or on our phones. And so the room would be dark and silent, and we would just both be reading like all night. And sometimes I would hear her crying. Sometimes I would be crying, and I know she heard me crying, just depending on what we were reading. One time she was reading The Maze Runner, and it was nighttime. We must have had the light on still, because she was reading a paperback, because she threw it across the room.
Oh.
And I like looked over. I had a loft bed and she had a regular bed, and I like looked down like at her bed, and she was like, "I hate that book." But yeah, those were my wild days, was staying up reading or crocheting. I would stay up late crocheting. I did that earlier this year, actually, in February. I would stay up really late crocheting.
I
Catherine's
did
sweater.
learn what's the other thing, like crocheting?
Knitting,
No. Maybe it was crocheting.
needlepoint.
No, it was crocheting, I guess.
Mm-hmm.
I did learn. My mom taught me how to crochet, and I actually really did enjoy that. Like
I
I still
love crocheting.
sometimes really want to do it again.
I can teach you.
Yeah.
I can teach you.
That would be fun. Even though it makes me kind of feel like an old lady, but I love it at the same
Yes.
time, because like who doesn't love crocheted stuff?
I
Like
know.
everyone wants to buy it. You could
One
put that
time-
stuff on Ipsy, people will buy it.
One time, but also just brings you.
Ipsy. I meant Etsy.
You
Not
can put it on Ipsy. That's so funny. It just brings me so much joy and so much peace. Sometimes I'll just put an audiobook on and listen to the book while I'm crocheting, because it keeps my hands busy
Yeah.
while I'm listening to the book. Is like no other experience. It's so good. What a homeschool thing to say.
Honestly.
But also, what was I going to say? Something about crocheting. Oh, yeah. This is also a very homeschool thing about me, is that I once took my crochet project to a bar and was actively crocheting at the bar. Only did that. There's video evidence. And honestly, I would do it again.
Honestly, no shame in that. There
are worse things to do at a bar.
A lot worse. It's just funny how different we grew up.
I know.
Like not just that, the regular aspect, but just
how different we are.
Yeah, our teenage life was like
Yes.
two completely different worlds.
When
you saved yourself from a lot of trauma from boys.
Yes,
because
I hated them. I was not interested.
You still do.
I still do. Sorry if you're a boy.
I was okay. I don't know if I would say I was boy crazy.
I would. I would say that.
Okay, maybe I was. But
you were still boy crazy when I met you.
True. I was literally up until probably I was like 20 years old.
Until you met Gary?
Well, I met him at 22.
Okay.
So maybe it was 22. But now I'm just crazy about him. But it wasn't even in the sense that like other girls, like, okay, the reason my comparison is I grew up with friends that were legit boy crazy, where they like were crazy and they'd like kiss boys and like all this stuff as young teenagers, like all the time, or like have new boyfriends every week, like that type of thing. Like my public school friends, a lot of them were like crazy. Like so I'm like, okay, I was pretty tame compared to them, but yeah, traumatized myself a bit and traumatized some of them too, because I wasn't allowed to date, obviously, so I would kind of, just have a thing with people here and there.
You would talk to boys
for a long time. And it would be kind of like we were dating, but like in my head, I was like loyal. But in their head, they were obviously like not.
Yeah, because you weren't like actually committing like to them, even though in your head you were. They didn't know that.
No, I'm saying like I had a loyal like mindset.
Yeah.
So like,
But because you didn't say it out loud and you wouldn't call them your boyfriend, they would be like, that's their excuse.
yeah, true. Which honestly they would have done. They would have not
Yes.
cared regardless.
Yes, but they had an excuse.
Yeah. So, but then that also led me to like leading people on in a sense, which like is not a good thing.
It's
A
a game
classic-
until it's not.
Yeah. And it's a classic line that I've heard that other people have used in the Christian dating world, or not allowed to date, or whatever high standard world, is when things get too serious, they start to get too serious, we just tell them, God told me you're not the one for me. And we would blame God to get out of things.
I don't know about this I never did
Okay,
that.
not me as in her, but I actually know, I know of other girls that
Oh, yeah.
had, or guys too. There was guys that did that as well. But it was like, it was true in a sense, because I know for a fact that these people were not right for me. But instead of owning up and just being like, yeah, I'm not into this, whatever, it was like, God told me that,
Blame it on God.
like, I prayed about it and blah, blah, and like, I mean, I would pray about it, but like,
It's a little misleading.
I already knew the answer.
Yeah.
That's the crazy part, is like,
You knew the answer before you even began.
literally, because it's just like, oh, we're just friends, you know?
Mm-hmm.
We're just friends. It always starts like that. So if you're younger, if you're a teenager watching this, don't ever think you're just friends with somebody, because I promise you it will turn into more, and you'll be wishing you never talked to them just so you could get out of it. But yeah, that's the life of growing up Christian, not being allowed to date. I mean, homeschooled and Christian
and
not
homeschooled.
and not allowed to date, because there's a lot of people who grow up and they're like, oh, we weren't allowed to date, haha, whatever. But like, their parents didn't really care. Like, I
Yeah.
genuinely couldn't. Like, my parents never even talked about dating it when I became an adult. Like,
Yeah.
it was just like, it went from don't date to, oh, when are you getting married?
Yeah.
Like,
Yeah, that's so real.
it's crazy. But
I
yeah.
we had a rule where we weren't allowed to date until we were 18. We had to be 18, graduated high school to be able to date. And the thought of dating was so repulsing to me and so like scary that when I turned 18, I was like having panic attacks like leading up to my 18th birthday.
You thought you had to date?
Yes, I thought that it was going to be like this magical number where like guys would know, oh, she's allowed to date now, I can ask her out. That never happened. I never got asked out, thank God. But yeah, anyway, it was just like it's so funny how like different we are in that aspect too, because I was so like not looking forward to being allowed to date and like losing my excuse of I'm not allowed to date.
True.
Which I never had to use.
No, honestly, that's how I was too, though.
Yeah.
Like, it's not even that I really wanted to. Like, I did, but I didn't. I don't know.
You just wanted
like,
to play the game.
Yeah, like, I liked the attention,
Yeah.
which I think is fair, because that's pretty much everyone.
Except me. Don't give me attention. Do not look at me.
Oh,
Do
yeah,
not perceive
that's
me.
very true. Have you ever been on a date at all?
No. Not a single date.
Well, me and Erica went on a double date accidentally.
Accidentally.
Why did I say that so proper? Accidentally.
How did that happen?
Well, I think that we didn't know it was a date, even though it was two brothers
Oh.
and us two sisters.
Yeah, but like that, I can see that. Like, oh, you're brothers and we're sisters and we're going to go hang out.
Yeah.
I can see how that could be misconstrued.
And they picked us up and everything. Like,
Okay,
because the
now
older
it's getting
brother,
a little weird.
the older brother was Erica's age, obviously, so he
Yeah.
drove. Later on, once like Erica like didn't want to be with the older guy, he tried to talk to me next. And he was older. Like, he was definitely like, he had to have been like 18. So, and I was definitely a minor.
Oh.
Yeah. But anyways, so we went to the movies, and me and Erica sat next to each other, of course. We weren't going to be like, one go with him,
Yeah.
one go with him. So I think only I was sitting next to, I think like the two guys went in first, and so only I don't know. I don't remember exactly the seating chart, but whatever.
Seating chart.
And so one guy asked me, he was like, and I honestly can't even remember their names, I'm not gonna lie. They were not very
I believe you.
significant in our life that long. But he was like, "Do you want like some popcorn or anything?" And I said no, because I was thinking
Yeah.
like, I don't want him to think this is a date, even
Yeah.
though like they definitely thought it was a date. I mean, all signs point to yes, it was a date.
Yeah.
But it's actually so funny because I think this same day, I'm pretty sure it was the same day, or maybe another time I was at this theater, I'm not sure. My best friend was also on a date, and she never told me that she was going on a date with this guy that I also knew.
Caught red-handed.
Yes, that's literally what happened. But yeah, so I don't know. I think we didn't really know. We kind of hoped that it was just a friendly thing, but obviously guys don't care for a friendly thing. So, yeah. I don't really remember what happened after that. Like,
That's
I don't
such a
think,
funny like fact. Like, I went on an accidental date once.
yeah.
I've never even been on an accidental date.
I'm actually surprised that our parents let us go with them. Maybe because
Yeah.
it was both of us.
Yeah.
And like,
And you didn't say we're going on a date. You're like,
I know.
we're going to go hang out with our friends.
yeah, I'm trying to think if I've ever been on like an actual date, but I don't think so.
You've never been on a date with Gary?
Well, yeah.
Oh.
I mean, like, I'm talking about growing up home, like the homes. I'm still talking about like the homeschool like time of life when I was like young. But yeah, definitely with Gary. But before that,
A boy never took you to cookout?
I don't think so. Everything we did was usually like a group
As a
thing.
group, yeah.
I never did anything really. I was never alone with guys ever. There was probably at times that guys thought things were dates that wasn't, honestly. But I can't think of anything. Imagine they're watching this like, wow, she doesn't even remember. But I think I would.
I just had a funny memory unlocked. When we first moved here to Indiana, we don't live in Indiana, but when we first moved to this area, I obviously, like, we were new, and like Ariel and I were the new pastor's kids, and so like our parents forced us to do activities. And so like I remember being forced to go to the junior high youth group.
Of course.
Oh my gosh, awful experience. So this church that my dad was pastoring, they were putting together like this kids worship team. I don't really know what it was for, but anyway, they forced me to be on it. My parents forced me to be on this kids worship team.
Of course.
And they had like auditions and stuff, but I missed the auditions because we didn't live here. And so like I didn't audition or anything. It was just like my parents were like, "Oh yeah, Mariah can sing harmonies." And I'm just like, I don't want to. But anyway, I had to. And so it was me and two other girls, and then a guy played guitar, and I think his little brother played drums. But like nobody was good. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Like nobody was good because we were kids. So the guitar player only knew how to play like really distorted electric guitar.
Oh my gosh.
And so it was really hard to sing to that. But anyway, the guy who played guitar, had the biggest crush on me. I was 12. And he was probably around the same age, maybe a little younger. And I remember like realizing, oh great, he has a crush on me, and I hated that. And so I just like avoided him. I like wouldn't talk to him, and I like wouldn't acknowledge him during practice. And then there was an event at the church that took place at night, and I was like not feeling it, so I was gonna walk home because we lived right next to the church. Mm-hmm. And so I left the fellowship hall, and I was just approaching, I don't think I've ever told anybody this story. I was just approaching the door to push it open, and I saw his reflection coming at me because it was dark outside. So I saw his reflection in the door coming at me, and he like came up behind me and covered my eyes. You know how guys like to do that? And I recoiled. I said, get off, get off. And I like shoved his hands off of me. And I was like, get off, get off, get off. And he was just like, oh, sorry. And I was just like, don't touch me. And he was like, where are you going? And I was like, home. And I left.
Oh my gosh, I've never heard this story.
I truly don't know if I've ever told anybody that story because it was so embarrassing to me. Like when it happened, I was
Imagine
just like,
being him and
no.
trying to be all cute like you're
Yeah.
put in a movie.
And instead I turned into a goblin telling you to get off
Get
me.
off me. Oh my gosh.
I was so embarrassed when it happened. And I was like too embarrassed for years to tell that story. I don't think I've ever told anybody.
Yeah.
Yeah. That was pretty awful. But yeah, that's a day in the life in a homeschool Christian kid.
Yeah. Honestly, I feel like we'll have to do another one of these.
Yeah, and you know what? If you are homeschooled and you have funny memories or experiences, let us know. Comment or tag us in if you have a story
Please.
that you want to tell, like make a video of yourself telling a story and put it on your Instagram story or something. We would love to see that.
Yeah, and honestly, if you have a crazy enough story, we might have to make you a guest on our podcast because
You know who I know has crazy stories?
Who?
Abby King.
I was thinking that.
I'm calling you out, Abby King. Give us a good story to tell.
Yeah. Come over. Come to Kentucky. So, yeah, that about wraps it up. We might have to put this in two parts, honestly, because that was honestly a lot, and we could keep going forever.
So many good stories.
But this was really fun to talk about, so I'm glad that we did this. But, yeah. So, what was your mundane miracle of the week?
That's a good question. I need to be more prepared for these.
Yeah, me too, honestly.
I think, you know what? We had a lot of trials and tribulations yesterday going through trying to get everything set up for this podcast. And my mundane miracle was that I really wanted Chick-fil-A so bad. I wanted a Chick-fil-A tea so bad. And then as I was leaving Walmart to go to Chick-fil-A, it was closed because it was Sunday. And so I didn't know what to do because I had my heart set on this tea. And then Jill said, where else can we go to get a good tea? Cane's. And so we went to Cane's, and it was a trial and tribulation to get even some drinks from Cane's because it was so busy. But thank the Lord, it was provided to me, and I got my tea, and it was delicious.
It was so good. And
it was so good that we got some more.
Every day since then.
We got more today.
The past, 3... Wait, has it only been one day? Yesterday was a really long day. But my mundane miracle has to do with that too. Yesterday, like the whole situation that happened, everything. So my mundane miracle is literally that we're filming this right now.
Yeah, seriously.
And that it worked out for the most part. We haven't had any more complications right in the past hour.
Yeah, we had a lot of, we couldn't even record anything yesterday because we just were going through so many, we had so many roadblocks.
So many trips to the store to get what we needed and not getting what we needed. And yeah, so
hopefully we don't ever have to deal with that kind of stuff again.
Yeah, hopefully.
But today, yeah, you're right. This is a mundane miracle.
Yeah, so
praise the Lord.
So comment below what your mundane miracle of the week is. We really want to know.
Mm-hmm.
We'd love to hear it. No matter how big, how small, we want to hear it.
Yep.
So yeah.
All
Thanks
right.
for watching.
Or listening.
Stay tuned for the next episode.
Bye.